Hi, I'm Whitney, and this is my daughter Haley, and we're going on a field trip to the Huston-Brumbaugh Nature Center, owned by Mount Union. We are going to be taking a little spring walk today, and we're going to learn about what we can find at springtime at the Nature Center. My husband, Adam Zorn, is going to be taking us on our field trip today. He is the program manager at the Nature Center. So let's get ready and have some fun and see what we can find in the woods today.
Hi everyone, I'm Adam, and I'm going to be your trail guide today. So we're going to head out into the forest and explore some of the trail system here at the Nature Center. And we're going to be looking for everything spring. So anything that we can find today that relate to the spring season, we're going to try and show it to you. We're also going to be listening from time to time too. There's a lot of things that are happening in the forest that we can't see, but we can use our sense of hearing to detect what's going on around us too. So as we start our walk, think about some of the things you might expect to see or hear in the forest during the springtime. Are you ready? Let's go. So we haven't made it very far down the trail, and just a few feet down the trail, and we found some flowers already. This is a very common plant here at the Nature Center, and it's not a place where most people would expect to find flowers. But if we look at it closely, there are leaves growing on or starting to develop on the branches. But these little yellow things here, just below where we see the leaves, those are flowers. These are flowers of the spice bush plant. So many of our bushes and shrubs have flowers on them right now. Not something that we normally look for. Something else that has flowers are these really huge trees. These are maple trees. They're really tall, so their flowers are hard to see. But sometimes, if we look on the ground, especially on this boardwalk, we can see some of the flowers that they were making. We find some of the flowers. Oh, here's some. Haley, you want to pick those up? There's some flowers. We'll get these ones too. And those are some seeds that were growing before they happened to fall down. So right here, we've got little maple flowers. They're sort of red with little yellow bits sticking out of them. And then these were also maple flowers, but they actually have little baby seeds that were starting to develop on them. So these are the beginnings of those helicopter seeds that you might find somewhere around your neighborhood. Tree flowers. Let's see what else we can find. Something else that happens in the springtime, of course, is that it rains a lot. And when it rains a lot, all that rain lays on top of the ground, and you can see how wet that is. And down underneath all that water, when the water mixes with the soil, it makes mud. I put my hands in there, you can see, look at all that mud. So lots and lots of mud. That's something that's common in the springtime from all the spring rain. But sometimes these muddy spots are great places to look for footprints. Lots of animals will walk in the mud and then they leave their footprints behind. In fact, we actually found some footprints on the boardwalk here. You can see some right there in front of Haley's foot. They came up from this side of the boardwalk. You can see the muddy drips that came off of their feet. And then there's a track. There's a track. There's another one. And there's a set of them right there. Haley's going to show you how big they are with her hand down there. And if you look carefully, you can actually see this animal had 5 toes on their foot, just like Haley has 5 fingers on her hand. If you're wondering what animal this is from, these are raccoon tracks. Raccoons were walking through the mud. They climbed up over and crossed the boardwalk, and then they went down over the other side. around the nature center, you might encounter some plants growing up the trunks of the trees. Sometimes they're a ways off of the trail. Like there are some vines growing on that tree over there. And sometimes they're really close to the trail, like this tree here. Now, not all vines are anything you have to worry about, but there is one in particular that we need to stay away from. That's poison ivy. Poison ivy, when it's growing on a tree, looks really hairy, like this one does. You can see the main part of the vine right there has all those little, what looks like hairs, but they're actually little parts of the vine that help it cling to the bark of the tree. And those are called tendrils. And all those really fine tendrils, when they look, or they're covering the vine, it looks really hairy, almost like a caterpillar. And you see that climbing up the tree. That's a good way to know that that's poison ivy. And you definitely want to stay away from that. Now this poison ivy vine actually has branches coming off of it. So there's a branch right there near the tip of my finger. That's all the way attached to the vine, just around the corner there. Okay, and if you have poison ivy growing on a tree, you can be pretty certain it's probably growing somewhere around the base of the tree and anywhere along the ground. So this is just a really good reminder to make sure we stay on the trails when we're exploring anywhere like the nature center. Staying on the trail will help you stay away from poison ivy. It's not a bother to the wildlife, but it certainly can bother you. If you touch it, it'll make you really itchy. What'd you find?
It looks like monkey tails.
Monkey tails? Why do you think they look like monkey tails?
Because they look they're curly.
They are curly. They're kind of soft too, aren't they?
Mhm.
Yeah. Those are new leaves from this plant. You can see the old leaves right here. These are from last year. And now it has new ones. And when they come up, they're all curled up like this. So they do look a lot like a monkey tail. And this is a plant called a fern. This is Christmas fern. And we see lots of those popping out of the forest floor right now too. Good find.
Ooh, wow, what's this? Very pretty.
What'd you find?
I don't know. Really pretty.
Oh, that's a trillium.
Ooh.
It's a red trillium. It has 3 red petals. And then it has 3 green sepals. Those are the green parts that are sticking out between the petals, so it makes it look a little bit like a pinwheel. And then it has those 3 big leaves.
Ooh, it's really pretty.
Yeah, it's one of the coolest wildflowers I think we have out here. It's pretty neat. Got lots of wildflowers. We'll keep looking for more wildflowers.
What did you find?
A leaf?
A leaf?
Ooh, can I have a look at that?
Yeah.
Show me what you found. Oh, look at that. Ooh, it's got really neat patterns in there. Look, there's one main vein that goes down the center, and then all of these really straight ones. It kind of looks familiar. It looks a lot like the leaf on my hat. Hey, I think it is. That's the same kind of leaf. That's a beech leaf. That's the symbol for the nature center. And there's actually a little beech tree right over here. It's a little one. But you can see some of those papery leaves still hanging on there. There's one right here. Really dry, papery leaves. This one's all curled up. It's just about ready to fall off. These little beech trees hold their leaves for a long time, all the way through winter. And then in the spring, they finally fall off. And then there it goes. Then the new leaves will grow from these really long, spiky buds. That's where all of this year's leaves are all tucked inside of those long, spiky buds. So when the forest turns green, some of those leaves are going to come out of those little buds right there. Pretty neat. It won't be long. The forest will be bright green again. Something that's really neat to do when you're exploring the forest is to look underneath something like a fallen log. Here at the Nature Center we have lots of different chunks of logs like this one here that lay right along the side of the trail, and they're kind of there on purpose so that if you're curious you can actually gently turn one over and investigate who might be living underneath of there. Oftentimes you'll see worms, you oftentimes will see mushrooms, you might see roly-polies and millipedes and centipedes, and if you're really lucky, like we were, you might find a salamander. So, Haley, do you want to show everyone the salamander?
Ooh,
there he is.
Look at him.
There he is. So salamanders are an amphibian. So they're related to frogs, but they live on the forest floor. At least this kind does. This is a red-backed salamander. And he doesn't have a red back because they come in two different color phases. They come with one that has red stripe on its back. And then this one here is what we call the lead phase, because he's sort of a dark gray, sort of like the same color as pencil lead. And here you can see his little tiny legs and feet when he walks through Haley's hand. He's got a long tail too, and these guys live on the forest floor underneath the leaves, and they live underneath logs and big pieces of bark. They're really cool little creatures. All right, so we're gonna gently put our log back, and then we're gonna put this little guy back where we found him. All right, I'm gonna roll my log over first. Okay, so when you release your salamanders, what you want to do is you gently roll the log back. It's like putting the roof back on the house. And what Haley's going to do is she's going to bend down really close to the log there. Bend all the way down, kiddo. Open your hand and let the little salamander crawl out of your hand. Put your hand on the ground. Put your hand back. There you go, and then coax him. Give him a little nudge underneath the log there so he knows where to go to get safe. Oh, he doesn't want to leave your hand. You must be warm.
There you go.
That's something else we have to remember about our amphibian friends, is that they're cold-blooded. Oh, there he goes. Look at that. Right back under the log. Cool. Good find.
What are these? They look like little umbrellas.
Umbrellas?
I don't know.
Yeah, they
different.
do. Look at all these little plants looking like little umbrellas sticking out of the ground. Those are called May-apples. They're a kind of a odd-looking wildflower. And a lot of them don't even have a flower. It takes a long time for May-apples to get enough energy to make a flower. So a lot of these are not ready to make a flower, but I see one that is. See, this one has one stalk and two umbrellas. And then in the middle, there's a little flower bud in there, right below my finger. That's where the flower is going to end up growing. There we go, peekaboo, down inside there. So that's the flower of what will, it'll be a big white flower on this May-apple plant. And there's all kinds of them all throughout here. There's a big patch of May-apples. They're really neat to find in the springtime forest.
Well, on the Nature Center, we can find a bunch of maps around on the trails. So if you ever were lost or you didn't know where you were going, you can go and look on the map. So here's a map. Here is where we started at the visitor center. And we walked all the way down here. And then we went onto the yellow trail. And we walked all the way over here to the leaf. And how we can figure out where we are is we can go down here and all these little symbols down here. It's called the key, or it can be called the legend. So you come down here and you can find you are here. And it has a little picture of a leaf. So then you can come onto your map up here and try to find the leaf. So Haley, where's the leaf? Right there. And that's where we are right now. And here's the Nature Center. So if we were lost, we can just follow the map to go back to the Nature Center. into the parking lot. All right, so maps help us get where we need to go. So we have all of these around the Nature Center to help us.
What did you find, Haley?
Oh, those are pretty.
Flowers.
Flowers. We have more spring wildflowers. These are called violets. There's lots of different kinds of violets. This just happens to be one of many different varieties. These ones happen to be a nice purpley color. There's a really big cluster. There's some more there, and there's some more there. So lots of violets blooming on the forest floor right now. Pretty cool. Let's see what other kinds of flowers we can find. All right, so we found another wildflower. Sometimes you have to look really hard for these things, because they might be hiding underneath some of the other plants. So we have some of these rose bushes that are growing here, and there's this, a raspberry plant here. This is a raspberry bush with its leaves coming out, and here's a cherry tree with its leaves coming out now too. But what we really are interested and excited about seeing is this. We have another trillium. This is our state wildflower. This is the large flowered trillium. So it's similar to that red one, very, very similar, except for it's a different color, and it's a little bit bigger too. So it has these 3 leaves again, just like our last trillium did. It has 3 petals. This time they're white and they're really wide. And it has those beautiful yellow centers. Those are really nice too. So that's Ohio's state wildflower, large flowered trillium. Do you guys hear all the bird sounds?
Yeah.
You hear them?
Mm-hmm.
How many different kinds do you hear? A lot?
Yeah.
There's a lot. There's a lot of bird song at this time of the year because, well, birds are very busy. Birds are doing a lot of things that happen at this time of the year that you don't see at other times of the year. Birds are migrating, so some birds are coming back from spending their winter somewhere far, far away, and they're getting ready to make nests and lay eggs and raise their young. And all of the birds that spent the winter with us, many of them are going to stay here, and they're doing the same thing, getting ready to make nests, lay eggs, and raise their young. So there's lots of singing because singing is involved in all of those activities. The males sing to the females. Sometimes the females sing back to the males. That's how they bond with each other and how they stay together as a pair. They also talk to the other birds that are in their same neighborhood, and they use their voices to communicate with each other so that all of the birds know where everyone's section of the habitat is, so that no one goes too close to somebody else's area. Just like we all have our own houses or apartments and we have our own yards, we set up boundaries around us to protect our little areas, and birds do the same thing, and oftentimes they use their voices. Oh, listen. Those are 2 woodpeckers. They're having a conversation about who should be here and who should probably fly away. So that's one of my favorite things to do in the springtime, is to sit somewhere and listen to all of the bird sounds. You'll be amazed at how many different types of sounds you might hear. All along the trail, especially in these muddy areas, you'll see lots of footprints. So you see lots of human prints from our shoes and my shoes. And you might see some prints from people when they walk their dogs here at the Nature Center. But the trails are oftentimes used by the wild animals that live here at the Nature Center too. And there's a couple of tracks here from the biggest animal that lives here at the Nature Center. This heart-shaped track right here is a deer track. A deer track. So there's one here, and the pointy end of the heart, that's the tips of the toes, is pointing in this direction. So whichever deer it was walking that way. Now, just a little ways away, we've got 2 more deer tracks right here. There's one here, another one here, and they're actually pointing in that direction. So we can follow these, and we'll see where the deer were headed. There's another set, and there's another one, and there's another, and another, and another, as the deer walked right along the edge of our trail. And eventually they turned and walked off the side of the trail. This is the last track that we could find. And then the deer disappeared somewhere out into the forest. Pretty cool. We didn't see any deer, but we know they're here because we found their tracks. Okay, so we were walking down the trail and this little guy here was basking in the trail. You can see we're standing in a really sunny spot right here, and this is a common garter snake. Garter snakes, like all kinds of other reptiles, need to warm their bodies in the sun. And at this time of the year when there's no leaves on the trees, there's lots of sun filtering through the treetops. And so you could find a garter snake sitting just about anywhere in the forest at this time of the year. They just emerged from hibernation. Many of them are going to probably be a little bit hungry, so they're going to warm their bodies so they can move. This guy's moving pretty good right now. And then he or she will be ready to go looking for a meal. And then after they've eaten, they'll go and sit back in the sun, and their bodies will warm in the sun again, and that'll help them digest their food. So garter snakes are a really common reptile. This is our most common snake here at the Nature Center, and we're really lucky to have found this one. All right, we're gonna let him go. Let him go back to his business here in the forest at the Nature Center. So we've made it out here to an open area. We have sort of a meadow that the part of the trail goes through, and there's lots of dandelions out here, and this is a great place to look for insects that are active at this time of the year. And in fact, here's a dandelion right here, and if you look, you can see we've got a tiny little bee who is very busy with her face down in the center of that dandelion, where she's drinking some nectar and she's collecting some of that bright yellow pollen that's inside of the dandelion. And she's going to use the nectar for food for herself, and she's collecting pollen to take back to her little nest, and she will use that pollen as food for her babies. So this might be a type of bee that you're not familiar with. In fact, I'll put my finger really close. You can see how small she is. She's not much bigger than an ant. In fact, there are ants that are bigger than this bee here. A lot of these little tiny ones, if you look closely, you might even think they're an ant, but you can see her wings. And she is a solitary bee. There's lots of different kinds, but solitary bees are just that. They're solitary. They live by themselves, and they don't make big hives or big colonies, and they don't make the big loud buzzing sound. In fact, they go about their whole life, and most people don't even notice them. Oh, there she goes, off to find another flower and collect more pollen. Oh, there she landed back on the dandelion right next door. So this is some really cool stuff that you can see if you spend some time watching your dandelions outside in your yard. Insects emerging and taking advantage of all of this food that the flowers are providing. Okay, so we made it back to the visitor center at the end of our walk here. We're just hanging out on the bench, taking a little rest. But on behalf of the Nature Center, I want to thank you guys for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our spring walk today. So we saw and heard lots of different things that are going on here in the forest during the springtime. And not all of these things are something that you have to come all the way out here to see. You can experience a lot of these things right outside your door. So I'd encourage you to spend some time outside on one of these beautiful spring days. Take a look around, look for signs of spring, and listen to the sounds of spring as well.
Well, this wraps up our field trip, and I hope you enjoyed yourself and learned a lot on our field trip, and we hope to come and visit again. All right? Well, come on out and enjoy yourself. All right? Bye.